everyone. Good morning. And good morning to all our viewers from across Southeast Asia. Good afternoon as well as good evening to our viewers from other parts of the world and beyond. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. So my name is Nathan Felix, and I am a PR Associate of SEARCA's Partnerships Unit under the Office of the Director. So for the past few webinars, my colleague, Ms. Kim Bantayan, a program specialist of SEARCA, has been moderating this SOLVE webinar. But in the meantime, we would want to give her some rest and enjoy her day while I take over today and for the next week. So as you can see, the short video shown earlier has given you a glimpse about SEARCA and what we do. SEARCA is hosted by the Philippine government on the campus of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So we are coming to you live from Los Baños, Laguna, the special science and nature city of the Philippines. So for those who are new, well, you might be wondering at this point in time, what is SOLVE or what does SOLVE stands for? Well, this SEARCA Online Learning and Virtual Engagement Webinar, or SOLVE for short, is SEARCA's immediate response to the emerging impacts of the COVID-19 global pandemic on food security. By maximizing the use of information and communication technology platforms to inform, to educate, and to share evidence-based solutions and tested technologies, as well as the best practices on the ground. So if you are new to this webinar, this is actually the 14th webinar since it was launched last April 28th. Under the 11th five-year plan, SEARCA recognizes the unique and important role of young people in agricultural transformation in Southeast Asia. We hope that this SOLVE webinar series will serve as a platform to discuss the problems and challenges that directly impact the lives of our young people, including women, as well as allow them to share their solutions and successes. And so, since today is August 12, we enjoin all our youth from all over the world in celebrating United Nations International Youth Day. So I want you to greet your friends, your family, and your colleagues who are part of the youth. And of course, to those who are also looking young and youthful. Okay, so let us all greet them a happy youthful day. All right, so moving to our online discussion this morning, it is not only meant to celebrate the United Nations Youth International Day, but it also serves as a launchpad for the collaborative engagements between SEARCA and the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, or the YPARD as well. But before we proceed to our online conversation this morning, please allow me to just quickly go over some very interesting statistics gathered from the SOLVE webinar held last week, which is August 5, 2020. So I want you to please take a look in your screens, okay? So the infographic shows that 79% of our online viewers last August 5 were female and the rest were male. And this has been the consistent trend over the past 13 SOLVE webinars that we've had, where women consistently dominated our online attendees. The infographic also indicates that 118 individuals tuned in via Zoom, while more than 800 viewed the webinar through SEARCA's Facebook page. And lastly, we are happy to note that we've had online attendees not only from the Philippines, but we also have attendees coming from Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Canada, and the US. Now, allow me to quickly go over the program flow for today's webinar, which is now currently shown on your screen. After my introduction and a few housekeeping points, our first speaker, Mr. Sonny Pasiona, will present SEARCA's youth program, which is the Young Forces for Agricultural Innovations, or the hashtag Y for Agri. It will be followed by Mr. Kofi Kisiedu, Acquaye, with his presentation on empowering youth to participate in sustainable food systems. Mr. Carlos Castellanos Neira follows with his presentation on fostering the creation of digital agriculture communities in times of COVID-19. And last but not the least, Ms. Charlene Tan will share with us her experience in community shared agriculture, relocalizing food economies for health, environment, and peace. The question and answer sessions follows after all the presentations. So, I know you are all excited to listen to our speakers, but before, let me first encourage you to send your questions. So you might be wondering, so how are we going to send our questions? Well, for those of you who are tuned in, all right, via our SEARCA Facebook page, you may type your questions in the comment section. And if you are registered and tuned in via Zoom, okay, so please post your questions or comments in the Q&A section that you see at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on the gadget you are using. We will collect the questions, and once we are in the Q&A session, our speakers will address them in the time remaining. May we also request you to kindly indicate your location and also your country of origin. It will be good for us to know where you are watching in this webinar. We encourage you to please like SEARCA's Facebook page now, all right, by pressing the little thumbs up sign just below the cover photo for us to remain socially connected. By liking our Facebook page, you will regularly receive updates on our learning events, webinars, and postings on recent developments in agriculture and rural development. Please also note that today's webinar is being recorded and it will be made available on SEARCA's Facebook page and YouTube channel. You may also subscribe to SEARCA's YouTube channel. In addition, today's presentations will be made available on SEARCA's website at www.searca.org. The slides shown during the past webinars have already been posted on the SEARCA website. We will also be live tweeting this webinar, so you can join in the conversation by using the hashtag SEARCASolve. So if you have any issues or are experiencing any technical difficulties with the Zoom online platform, please email my colleagues at solve@searca.org. All right? So now I guess we are now ready for our next part of our program, which is the most awaited section. Moving on to the webinar, our first speaker is a communications associate on the partnerships unit at the office of the director, and he is also the focal person of SEARCA's youth program. He has a decade of experience in youth and community development advocacy as lead and multimedia strategist of development projects for children and youth in urban and rural communities. His work in the agricultural sector encompasses research and on youth engagement, knowledge management, and ICTs in agricultural extension. He has also covered and published farmer stories and other articles on rice science and technologies, policies, programs in Philippine agriculture. Our speaker holds a bachelor's degree in development communication and is currently pursuing his master's in development management and governance. With that, let me now turn over the screen to Mr. Sonny P. Pasiona.
All right, good day everyone. Mabuhay from the Philippines. I am Sonny from SEARCA. And to begin my presentation, allow me first to show you a video on what we are celebrating today from our director.
Good day. I'm Glenn Gregorio of SEARCA. To all the youth in Southeast Asia, and the world. We join you in celebrating the International Youth Day. I was once young, and my younger years have sparked my passion for agriculture and led me to a career as an agricultural educator, scientist, and even a farmer. To you young ones, don't wait. Prepare now for your future. Being young gives you the opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed. Let's participate, voice out, innovate, and take action in whatever we do. At SEARCA, we believe in you, the power of the youth, and to show our commitment for the younger generations, our strategic plan for the next 5 years put value on youth engagement in agricultural and rural development. To all the youth at SEARCA, you have your share in attaining agricultural transformation to our farmers and farming families. You are young, creative, full of energy and spirit. In agriculture, we need your force towards a meaningful purpose. SEARCA is here to prepare the next generations of leaders in Southeast Asian agriculture and beyond. Today, we bring you the Young Forces for Agricultural Innovation, or hashtag Y4Agri. Y4Agri is our commitment to work for and engage the youth. Y4Agri is a platform for you to be heard, to be engaged, and to be partner in attaining better, bigger, smarter solutions for our farmers and farming family. Have a youthful day, and God bless you, young people, our heroes of the future. Happy International Youth Day.
All right, so that's our director and his very youthful energy. Thank you, Dr. Gregorio. And Circa hopes that his video message makes everyone feel young on this special day for the youth. And as Dr. Gregorio mentioned, today we're bringing you the Young Forces for Agricultural Innovation, which is our special initiative for youth engagement and empowerment in agri-innovation. So the theme of our Solve webinar this month is on youth, particularly in youth disengagement in agriculture. So just to put some context on why this is a very critical topic, there are 3 challenges that are commonly cited reasons why young people are seemingly disengaged or disinterested in agriculture, particularly in many developing countries here in Southeast Asia. First, of course, aging farmers, which is widely talked about as it poses a question on food security, the unattractive and unlucrative perceptions of young people in agriculture, and finally, the exodus of the rural youth to urban areas. But on the other hand, we're also seeing some opportunities for youth engagement, such as the changing perceptions of young people to food, nutrition, and agriculture, especially during this time of pandemic when local food security becomes all more important. And we also recognize that the youth are savvy on digital media and technologies. And also we're seeing a foodie generation who loves to eat, take photos, and post on social media supporting local food businesses, and farm-to-table concepts. So how does SEARCA help address these challenges and provide opportunities for youth engagement in agriculture? Over the years, our YouthAgenda has been providing scholarships for mid-career and young professionals on graduate programs in agriculture and allied fields. And we have the School Plus Home Garden project. Many of the Facebook comments last week have agreed that we need to start them young. To be able to engage young people in agriculture, we need to start them young. And for the past, in recent years, SEARCA has been implementing the School Plus Home Garden, and now we're scaling up the project. And aside from food security, we're also integrating biodiversity. And this photo, last year we conducted a photo contest centering on cultivating Southeast Asian youth in agripreneurship. So some of the photos that I am using in this presentation are actually actually came from this photo contest. Then we have early this year, before the lockdown here in the Philippines, we were able to conduct this youth agriculture and the environment session during the Philippine Environmental Summit early February. So the youth session basically, we featured some of the by the youth and for the youth initiatives that promote sustainable agriculture practices, environmental protection, and circular economy. Then we have this Agribiotech Bootcamp for high school students. And in that bootcamp, we were able to engage some of the top students across the Philippines, whom we may be able to influence in terms of their career decision, in terms of the courses or degree programs that they would want to pursue when they enter the university. And in the bootcamp for high school students last year, you can see here that we tapped into the youth's creativity by asking them to draw. For you, who is the young agri-innovator? And after 15 minutes, they were able to draw these young agri-innovators who will be responding to some of the key challenges in agriculture. So in less than 15 minutes, they came up with these agricultural heroes. And as mentioned in the video message of the director, young people are the heroes of our future. So we have here Captain Earth, we have Plantanos, and Mighty Agropod. Very clever ideas from our high school students of the Biotech Bootcamp. So going back to this context and giving all these youth initiatives, why do young people matter? And right now that we're putting the spotlight on young people, primarily because we are the future. So Dr. Gregorio said that the young people are the heroes of our future. So SEARCA believes that in preparing for the future, we need to engage them in the preparation and tap into their potentials. Like what I've mentioned, what I've mentioned is in terms of creativity, the food generation, and then the tech savviness of young people. And in the ASEAN region, about a third of the youth defined by ASEAN as those between 15 to 35 years old, they comprise about 33% of the total population in Southeast Asia. So what does this mean? Collectively, actually, this group of people, the young generation, a third of the Southeast Asian population, makes a strong force for development, more so for agricultural and rural development. And to our viewers, we've listed there some reasons on why young people matter. You may please tell us more in the chat box or through the Facebook comments why you think young people matter in agriculture, or simply why you are for agriculture. So you may feel free to post your comments or in the chat box in the Zoom platform. Just use the hashtag Y4Agri. Right. Moving forward, in relation to all this context and background of SEARCA's youth initiatives, just last month, SEARCA has formally put the youth into the agenda as among the priority stakeholders of our strategic plan for 2020 to 2025. And now, Y4Agri is our overarching program for youth engagement and empowerment in ARD, which builds on SEARCA's youth initiatives through the years. And we have here the Kiddies to Yapi stakeholder groups. We have 4 stakeholder groups: the school children, high school students, university students, and young professionals. And we have the 4A strategies. Our engagement strategy will follow the 4As. Raising awareness, as mentioned by the previous speakers in the previous solve sessions, we need to start them young. So we need to start with awareness, build their appreciation on agriculture, on food, on nutrition, and hopefully this awareness and appreciation would be able to spark action on the ground, not just on social media, but more particularly on the ground. And when there's action on the ground, SEARCA would be happy to enable these young people to form alliances for them to be able to partner with their fellow young people or connect them with government institutions or funding agencies that may well be able to fund their projects. So there's our 4As. And also for our components, Y4Agri will have 3 Cs. in advancing youth integration in agricultural and rural development. These three C's actually follow the three objectives of the program. So we have three C's: communicate, capacitate, and collaborate. First component, the communicate component. So the communicate component responds to the objective of elevating the interest of young people to venture into and pursue careers in agriculture and allied fields. So under this component, we can expect some online and face-to-face platforms for stories and use perspectives in agricultural and rural development. And these are stories that inspire and not just about overly romanticizing agriculture, but also offering practical solutions led by the youth themselves on how they are providing solutions or their best practices in their respective communities. Then, of course, through social media, we will also be promoting career paths in agriculture and then provide some learning events such as this Solve webinar. The capacitate component, this responds to the objective of enhancing the individual, social, technological, and individual, social, and technological capacities of young people through formal and non-formal education in agri-innovation and the food system. So SEARCA is preparing the youth as the next generation leaders in Southeast Asian agriculture. And as I've mentioned, we've been providing scholarships and skills enhancement opportunities. And we'll also be adding some training programs on sustainable agri-entrepreneurship and transformational leadership. So, and SEARCA is also, SEARCA has launched this new core program, Emerging Innovation for Growth, which is a critical program for supporting agribusiness incubation. So we also want to involve young people in this particular program for us to help them turn their crazy ideas into practical solutions in ARD. Then finally, this capacitate component also uses the mentorship approach. The mentorship approach, like what we've provided with a University of the Philippines Rural High School, we've provided them a seed fund to initiate this mentorship program. Then the collaborate component responds to the objective of engaging the youth in knowledge generation and policy dialogues on agricultural and rural investment. So very critical here is knowledge co-creation, because we also want to partner with young people in terms of producing knowledge products, what are their best practices from the ground, and then facilitate networking and partnership opportunities for the youth and various stakeholders. And just last month, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, and one of the YPARD members is also presenting in this webinar session. So that signifies our commitment to really partner with young people. For this matter, we are partnering with YPARD in their initiatives. And also, as I've mentioned, policy dialogues among the youth and decision makers on ARD investments from local to global levels, because we want to make use of these knowledge products, of these knowledge resources to be used by our decision makers. So we will be providing some platform for this. So initiating SEARCA's youth agenda are these forthcoming activities for the youth and by the youth. So we have the Agri Kids Expo to raise awareness on food and nutrition for school children. And then also we'll be having the Knowledge Bootcamp for Agriculture, Forestry and Natural Resources, or the AFNR Knowledge Bootcamp. That targets the high school students and teachers. And soon we will also be having this Young Achievers Award for ARD to recognize Southeast Asian youth's contributions in ARD. And finally, 1 year from now, since we're celebrating the International Youth Day, we will be having the Young Agri Innovator Summit on August 12, 2021, to showcase and put forward the youth-led solutions and innovations in agriculture. So this will be organized by young people, and we're gonna be inviting some of the seasoned professionals and decision makers in agriculture as audience, so they'd be able to see how young people have been creating their projects or implementing their projects. And today also, since we're celebrating the Youth Day, we are happy and excited to announce the Youth co-video contest. So SEARCA again puts the spotlight to the Southeast Asian youth in showcasing their local food production practices combined with their creativity. So we want you to tell your stories in a video format. And the theme of this particular contest is youth and locally grown food. And the challenge is to create that video in no more than 3 minutes, and in telling us why and how you're growing your food amidst the pandemic. So it could be growing food at home, growing food in school or in your community. And exciting prizes await actually the winners who can give us both educational and entertaining video stories. So prizes are $500, and then I forgot to put in here, we're also giving a smart tablet for the popularity award, the most like video on Facebook. Full guidelines of the video will be posted on the SEARCA Facebook page and website today. Right, that's it. So thank you for listening. That's SEARCA's youth program. Again, we wish everyone happy International Youth Day.
All right, so thank you so much, Sonny, for that very informative presentation. Truly, hashtag Y4 Agri addresses challenges on youth disengagement in agriculture, and even it provides opportunities for advancing, youth integration in agricultural and rural development. In addition, the centers, Y4 Agri has the Kiddies to Yuppies approach, catering to school children, high school, and university students, up to even young professionals. This program also has the 3C components, like what you have said earlier: they communicate, capacitate, and collaborate, as well as the 4A strategies, which are the awareness, okay, appreciation, action, and alliance. With this, I would like to inform everyone that SEARCA is preparing some exciting pipeline activities for the youth. Starting off, of course, with the Youth Video Contest, again with the theme, Youth and Locally Grown Food. All right, so once again, thank you so much, Sonny. Maraming salamat sa oras mo ngayong umaga. So, for our second speaker this morning, he is the regional coordinator for the Young Professionals in Agricultural Development, or YPARD Africa, which is hosted by the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, or the FARA. He manages activities of YPARD's country chapters in Africa geared towards developing the youth as agricultural development experts. In his work, he helps communicate on agricultural activities in Africa meant to enabling and empowering young agricultural leaders in the region to shape sustainable food systems. His experience beyond youth engagement in agricultural includes training and management of farm-based organizations. He studied post-harvest technology at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, or the KNUST, in Kumasi, Ghana. And he also holds a master's degree in development communication. Without further ado, let us all welcome Mr. Kofi Kisiedu Acquaye.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for the wonderful introduction. And I'd also want to say thank you for the video that we saw from the director of SEARCA. It keeps ringing in my mind the message that he gave us. And one thing he said that I like so much is that we are young and innovative and strong spirited. I'd like to say on behalf of YPAD that we are glad to partner with SEARCA on this project and other projects as well. And my presentation here is on empowering youth to participate in sustainable food systems. I'd like to share my screen as we go along this presentation. So yes, as I said, the topic for discussion is empowering youth to participate in sustainable food systems. And I'm doing this on behalf of YPAD, which is hosted by FARA, the Forum for Agri Research in Africa, based in Ghana. In Asia, YPAD is hosted by CAS, that's the Chinese Academy for Agricultural Sciences. My presentation touches on some vital aspects of youth engagement in agriculture, and they are based on the views of youth who are themselves engaged in agricultural-based initiatives. I'll draw from some examples of the YPAD global community on how to empower youth in agriculture for impact. As we begin, I'd like to draw our attention to how the youth look like on the global level. Just a quick idea on the situation of the youth around the world. It is very vital to note that to every single voice of a grown-up complaining about employment issues, we also have 3 corresponding youth voices that are crying about the same issue. There are 3 more youth who are the youth employment rates, sorry, are 3 times as high as that of that of adults when we consider this in adults. And we would also want to pay much attention to youth in the rural areas, because they actually form 88% of the youths in the entire world. And it is very good to note that 75% of them are unemployed. So if we realize that there are chances of engagement of youth in agriculture, then we would have to really find out the best ways to engage youth, particularly the rural youth, in agriculture to reduce the unemployment and underemployment rates on the globe. I'm introducing to us right now some initiatives that we have been involved in, which have actually brought out the youth's viewpoint on youth engagement. So this slide right here discusses the outcome of a continental youth workshop convened by YPAD and FARA, our host in Africa. This was done last year, and it was done by FARA. It was hosted by FARA as the Capacity Development and Technology Outreach Compact of a program known as TAT. You would find the proceedings of this meeting in the publication displayed on the right side of the screen. That's the Youth Engagement on Technology Adoption in Africa report, the YETA report. And the idea behind this workshop was to encourage the youth and actually help them take charge of the deliberations on how to solve and tackle their challenges and respond to their needs. So upon interactions with the youth in this workshop that I'm talking about with this slide, we had the youth classify youth engagement along themes of ICTs, tourism, research, agricultural communications, and sustainable development. And the approaches to these themes of engagement of youth in agriculture are incubation, development of soft skills, competitions, training and advisory services, market access enhancement, job creation, field trips, and provision of grants. Now we would want to take a look at how what we can actually expect from youth employment initiatives. Taking a close look at youth employment initiatives makes us see that there are 3 main classes of youth employment initiatives, and the first is employment services, The second is skill development training programs. And the third is employment creation programs. And at times you would actually have a blend of two of them or all three of them in some initiative. In the context of development of collective agripreneurship skills among youth, FARA through a program known as PARI, that's a program of accompanying research for agricultural innovations, conducted a study to examine the characteristics of successful youth employment initiatives across the African continent. And this actually reveals the barriers to effective youth engagement. And among these, we realize that the limited monitoring and evaluation measures, the lack of guidance and counseling to help the youth in making informed career choices, limited coverage and coordination among implementing partners, and limited training capacity building facilities are among the challenges that are posed to effective youth engagement. And unstable funding mechanisms is also one of them. We realize that the absence of these challenges would prevent the resolution of youth to engage in hazardous coping mechanisms. And this makes life safe in our communities for us. I've been mentioning YPAD for a while now. In this presentation, I think it would be good to actually give a brief idea on what YPAD stands for. YPAD is the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development. It's a global online and offline platform in that we have online engagements and then we have physical engagements as well. But of course, with the outbreak of COVID-19, we are only limited to virtual engagements. And so our platform is of young professionals under the age of 40. And all youth, we all are actors in the food systems. And we are located in over 70 countries across the globe. This slide just gives a background of what YPAD, how YPAD started, the realization that youth are not usually brought to the table of discussion in decision making. You can find out more about this on our Who We Are section on our website. Our next slide shows us who our members are, where they are located, and the various aspects of the sector that youth are engaged in, our young professional members are engaged in. So we ask ourselves why we need YPAD. We realize that youth are an asset, and despite the progress that we've made in the sector over the years, youth are often viewed as too inexperienced and unable to contribute to strategic decisions and strategic discussions as well. They have limited access to trainings and to meetings and conferences. And so with the establishment of YPAD, we seek to have youth participate more in these and facilitate the access to professional opportunities for youth, and then to give youth a voice. We believe that all these will contribute to a sustainable agriculture as youth are involved. So as I was saying, we are a network of diverse experiences when it comes to our members. Our members come from various sectors, various sections of the sector, and we can see that as displayed. We are also located in all the regions across the globe, across 72 country chapters. So YPAD's vision and mission has to do with working on a food and nutrition secure world without depleting our environment. So we have as our vision a food secure world without poverty, where young people are enabled to fully contribute. And our mission is enabled and empowered young agricultural leaders shaping sustainable food systems. With our objectives on the next slide, which are 4 of them, these drive our visions and our missions. So we stand to be a key influencer in the strategic direction of youth engagement in sustainable food systems to enable young people in agriculture to shape sustainable food systems and to be an innovative and supportive global team. Now, all our actions are to ensure the long-term sustainability of the YPAD network so that even those who are not yet within the youth bracket would be able to benefit from the wonderful initiatives going on right now, even through our partnerships with institutions like SEARCA. Our next slide tells us what we do. And we take a holistic approach to youth empowerment. And these have us intervene at personal, community, and systemic levels. So we connect youth, we connect young agriculturalists to one another and help them collaborate and do things in a supportive way, which they may not have been able to do and cannot actually if they were to stand alone. We seek financial assistance for sustainable agricultural innovations. We provide access to training and mentorship programs, we design and develop platforms for meaningful youth participation. We engage youth in curricular reform, collect research data on youth, and we actually actively influence agricultural policies to make youth inclusive. And we do all these by telling the stories of youth in agriculture the best way that they should be, and then projecting it as a viable career choice. Our next slide tells us the real action on the ground when it comes to youth engagement, particularly in the space of Asia. So we as YPAD stand to ensure the sustainability of youth engagement initiatives. And YPAD facilitates the inclusion of young people in agricultural development. And we do this we facilitate the inclusion of young agricultural professionals in management committees around the world. So you would realize from the next slide that we have representatives on the UN Youth Advisory Board in the Philippines, who is a liaison for the sector of agriculture, forestry, and natural resources. And we also have a representative who is actually the YPAD Philippines representative on the Rome-based agency's Youth Council. He works closely with the International Agri Food Network, that's IAFN, to coordinate on behalf of YPAD Global as he already helped establish a youth council that aims to influence policies in 3 UN-based agencies, that is the FAO, the WFP, and YPAD. Yeah, we also celebrate youth participation in various value chains, as we saw from the previous slide. We don't have to go back to it though, but we helped organize the Youth Innovators Award with CGIAR's Summit. We also have mentorship programs running with MasterCard Foundation. We have also crafted a mentorship toolkit with the the Youth and Landscapes Initiative and the International Forestry Students Association. Yeah. So on my last slide, I would like us to have a few reflections, do a short reflection on this, that we so much often hear the term youth engagement, but truth is, we as youth are not being engaged until we really are engaged. And the perspective of the youth is indispensable in the conversation of the youth engagement. It is therefore important for the youth themselves to be included in the establishment of credible information, credible knowledge base for our own use. This is to help us engage with governments and the other decision makers, and that is what YPAD facilitates. And we want to also throw light on the need that youth are the only ones who can answer the questions of the development agencies when it comes to wondering on what the youth really want. The answers can be got from the youth. And we say that we are not being engaged until we really are engaged. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you so much, Kofi, for sharing to us how to empower the youth to participate in sustainable food systems. What a very passionate presentation you gave us. Thank you also for touching some of the vital aspects of youth engagement in agriculture. That these are based on the views of the youth who are themselves engaged in agricultural-based initiatives. We also appreciate how your presentation drew examples from the global YPARD community on how to empower youth in agricultural for impact. We are also one with your mission in fostering a food-secure world without poverty, where young people are enabled, given a voice, and has access to professional opportunities to fully contribute to sustainable agriculture. Once again, thank you so much, Kofi. Daisy the donkeys, Kofi Kisiedu, Acquaye. Again, may I remind our online attendees watching the webinar via Facebook Live, please start typing your questions now in the comment section, all right, including your location or country of origin. On the other hand, if you are tuned in via Zoom, please post your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on the gadget you are using. All right, so now we are going to move on to our next speaker. For our third speaker, he applies technology to create a positive social and sustainable impact with rural communities. And in addition, he is a dedicated advocate for farmers' inclusion. In his company, Cultivando Futuro, he and his team created an information system and used data to guide organizations in their rural development strategy and decision-making processes. Among his speaking engagements, he has been invited as a speaker in the Committee on World Food Security, CFS 2019, at the FAO United Nations. Lastly, he is the Chief Operating Officer of Cultivando Futuro, where he uses his expertise in agriculture knowledge and cooperation with rural communities to provide consultancy to create alliances between organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all please welcome Mr. Carlos Castellanos Neira.
Thank you, Nathan, for the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Hello, everyone. Good morning and good night here. I'm from Bogota, Colombia. So I'm Carlos Castellanos. I'm CEO of Cultivando Futuro, where we use big data to develop farmers' potential. And in this situation during the pandemic, we are fostering digital agricultural communities in times of COVID-19. So we're going to talk about it and how we use technology to increase digital adoption. So the problem here in Colombia, and also it's very similar in developing countries, it's that many countries don't have the information that the agriculture and food industry needs to operate strategically. What happens that organizations, farmers, and companies related to the sector, suppliers or wholesale buyers, are totally disconnected, right? So we have seen farmers so many times very isolated in their farms, and they don't have the right channels of communications to know about opportunities or organizations that can support them, or as simple as buyers for their crops, right? So this has caused these three big problems. The first one is that there's a lot of uninformed decision making by the whole actors, from organizations to farmers and to companies, and also that the markets are monopolized in food centrals. So there's a lot of middlemen that not just provide a service, but they use information and they don't pay fair to the farmers, right? And also we have, well, outdated information systems. This means that these actors in the whole supply chain can't be connected to a source of information to make better decisions and to make well-informed decisions during the process, right? So what we have done is seeing that this problem of communication about channels that farmers can't access, and so we decided to create an information system or a platform that consolidates information of the agriculture sector. This means that every farmer have a profile, and we collect these farmers' data to connect them with organizations or companies that can provide services or offer benefits to these communities, right? So our platform collects this data, analyze this information, and deliver key insights. This platform has been co-created with the farmers and producers, and with the vision in mind to impact markets and sector organizations. Having the right information in the right time could increase efficiency and productivity, also help decision-making processes based on data, and mitigate risks that way. We will not be relying on what I think about, but data can have more specific a context to, so farmers could have a very good source of information, so they can make better decisions, right? And also we could, with this system, allow inclusion for services through our network, so a farmer can, with their demographics, can access to the right information, or organizations formulating rural development programs can, for example, locate in the network of Cultivando Futuro the ones who are under 35, for example, very easily through our platform, and can provide services to that community. Also, I want to show this photo. This is in a town here in Colombia. It's in the countryside, it's in the rural area. And so I want to show this because where we have this meeting with farmers, well, this was last year, not in this situation. So yeah, we asked them how many of them have a smartphone or use internet. So most than 70% here showed us their smartphones, right? So this is just to prove a myth that in rural areas there's no access to technology. They use their smartphones, and the thing is that we have to change our mindset, not to think about that they must use internet 24/7, but they can use it on Sunday where they're going to buy supplies for their farm and go to the town and can register a crop in that time, right? So they don't need internet connection 24/7. We just have to look to provide services at the right time, right? So when we are talking about that data collection and how we use these moments where farmers have this connectivity, we have to make this process very lean and very very short and very specific. So in Cultivando Futuro, we have created a farmer digital IDs where we collect social demographic and productive information. That, in basic words, is their data, their farm's data, geolocation, and their crops calendarized. I'm going to show that part later. So also we collect this information and show it in visual dashboards. And also, yeah, we organize like all this information for communication. And the challenges about collecting this information is to offer a clear value offer. It's not like a huge challenge that farmers can't provide this information. They do it, but you have to be crystal clear about the value offer that you're proposing to them. For example, it's very valuable for them to connect to wholesale buyers or buyers that can buy your products, right? Also to access to the one who's being most affected by the problem, right? So who's the one willing to pay for this? This is going to be, if you're creating a startup, this is going to guarantee a cash flow there. And also like try to evaluate like what are you going with, like with the public sector or with the private sector. The public sector have a good broad capacity and already installed capacity with agronomists in rural areas. But the problem is about if they're willing to pay your startup, if you're creating a company based on agriculture. So maybe the private sector can provide you a faster cash flow, right? And yes, it's also important to collect this data with having in mind like gaining traction, having diversity of organizations that are supporting your initiative. And to summarize like the situation that farmers are experiencing during these times. So there's lack of option of transportation fees. There's also increased price in the supplies because the devaluation of currencies. For here in Colombia, we use pesos, and as many supplies are imported and are paid in dollars, so these prices have gone very high. So the farmers are the ones who are most affected by this. And also the food centers are becoming infectious focus for the pandemic. So there's a lot of food waste because farmers are not getting the means also to transport to these food centers. So we have to look for other ways of commercialization. And yes, also like farmers' opportunities for trading are, we must have in mind like different variables. It's not just like connect farmers with buyers, but we have to think about a process, and this is a result of this process. And it must be based in variables as location, availability, quantity. So we must collect this data to guarantee that the connection that is done later, it will be very efficient, right? So as a solution, we have provided this tool that it's a calendar. You can access in Calendario or calendar.cultivandofuturo.com. And here we can answer these very important questions, right? So where are the crops located? When are the products going to be available? And are farms increasing or decreasing the production? So this kind of data can help us to guarantee the food safety, for example, for a country. And here you can navigate very easily, like making a click on different products and know this and solve these questions, right? You can know where is the farmer, how many kilos are they producing, and how to contact them. So yes, we are providing this information through an app or also SMS if some of them don't have internet access, and also digital capacitation for operators of this program. We are already making an alliance with the government, and we are going to different states or departments here in Colombia so they can register farmers with the already agronomists that are there. And also like taking a very fast look about how the app can provide information. You can see that we can have a log where we can collect the information about the crops, about providing key information about opportunities for trading or offering information about good practices. We're starting also an alliance with a company that can provide that kind of information. And something that is very important for the young communities is that Thought for Food have supported us. They organize every year a summit. They're going digital this year, and they're a global community based on innovation for agriculture and food industry. So it's like the spot to be if you're creating a startup or you're a young person related to agriculture and you want to be in this community of innovators of global innovators. So I'm an ambassador of this community. But if you want to be connected, just write to me. There's my contact information, and I can contact you with the ambassadors in your regions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for sharing to us what Cultivando Futuro is and its mission in big data to develop farmers' potential. Truly, big data on our farmers' data is very important as it helps our stakeholders to create new growth opportunities and entirely new categories of linkages and partnerships that can combine and analyze farming data. These communities can have ample information about the products and services, or things like buyers, suppliers, consumer preferences that can be captured and analyzed. Your organization's initiative in connecting them with other stakeholders and companies for development is more than ever crucial and highly relevant, especially in a pandemic we are all facing. So once again, thank you so much, Mr. Carlos Castellanos Neira. Gracias por su tiempo esta mañana, Carlos Neira. Bueno. All right, so for our last and our lone female speaker in today's webinar, we will be flashing a recorded presentation of her discussion about community shared agriculture due to time constraints. All right, so to introduce her, she is a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering at the University of the Philippines. She received several distinctions and awards, such as the J.V. Angeles Award for Excellence in Water Resources Engineering and the Gawad Chancellor sa Natatanging Mag-aaral Award of UP in 2015. Lastly, operating under her leadership as the founder of the Good Food Community, they won in the I Am a Changemaker competition of the British Council. It was initiated by a group of young professionals called Hungrily, where in 2011, GFC was able to reach out to 20 farmers in Tarlac and almost 100 socially responsible consumers in Metro Manila with a total sale volume of more than ₱1 million. Friends and colleagues, let us all welcome Miss Charlene Tan.
Hi, I'm Charlene with Good Food Community, here to share with you community shared agriculture. So I'm naming the talk Relocalizing Food Economies for Health, Environment, and Peace. So what exactly is unsustainable about our food system? One would expect that a food system would deliver particular outcomes such as health and resilience and livelihood for people. But what we find in the Philippines, we find that 1 in 3 children below 5 years old is stunted, which means children are not, and their mothers are not getting enough food to eat to develop their full potential. Obesity and overweight rates have almost doubled in the last 2 decades. Now, this is associated more with affluence and just eating the wrong kind of calories. The average age of our farmers is 60, which brings the concern of who will produce our food within the next decade or within the next generation. And finally, food systems are responsible for 19 to 29% of all greenhouse gases. Not to mention, is it like 40% of our water use? And so basically we are using our natural resources at an unsustainable rate. It is community shared agriculture. It's basically a partnership between consumers, or who we'd like to call co-producers, and farmers. It's a way by which our farmers can be assured of a stable demand and our consumers can get whatever's fresh, seasonal, safe for themselves and for their families to eat. So how does it work? Basically, you pay up front for a subscription, and then you get a box of vegetables every week. On the back end, we work with the farmers on prices, on the production plan, to make sure you get a diversity of vegetables for your family. At the heart of it is really relationship. It's actually meeting the people behind your food, getting to know what their lives are like, the context that they actually contend with, and coming to a partnership of what is mutually sustainable and good for the generations to come. Because I can, I'll show you through our website now. So it's as easy as going to goodfoodcommunity.com, and you scroll down, you can see how our platform works, the voice of our farmers, and different farm share options. So you can shop CSA farm shares and choose between Gulay para sa lahat share, which translates to vegetables for everyone. Within it, you have a small or large option, and you can choose between 1 week, 4 week, or 12 weeks. So simply add to cart. When you've done that, you can add on, say, a seasonal fruit share or an antioxidant pack or a salad pack. And you can also add different seasonal products, such as a jar of beans or some fermented items we make, such as curtido, gardening soil, any of these items. So just add to your cart and click the delivery option and expect it to arrive on a Thursday. So behind the scenes, this is what we look like. How we deliver the vegetables to you, they come in what we call a tantipi, which is made out of pandan. So dried pandan boxes, as you see here, and we ask you to return them every week. So it's made in the Philippines, and we get to recycle. We try not to use any plastic in any of our products. There's obviously a lot of eating and tasting in our office. Got a cold storage where we keep your vegetables fresh. And online, we also have room to connect by inviting you to ask us anything on Instagram or on Facebook. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions about the vegetables, about the farmers, about anything. So what is the value that we provide? To the farmers in this food system, the value we provide is, for one, diversification. A lot of our farmers, by default, do monocropping. So they bank on one kind of commodity crop, and this doesn't necessarily translate to returns. It's high risk. By diversifying what they have in their farms, by growing their own vegetables, they can feed themselves and their families better. Technical knowledge we offer, while a lot of our farmers do have some understanding of organic, it's really more understanding the law as well and working together as a group. So crop programming, learning how to assign roles, learning to take, creating an organizational structure by which they can aggregate their produce and deliver to larger value chains. And finally, we connect them to markets. So I think this is one of the most valuable things. Many of our farmers don't really want to plant anymore or don't see a future because they don't have access to markets. They're basically price takers. They'll take whatever the trader offers them because they have no means or no other choice. By connecting them to markets, you give them the option of fair prices, of being able to plant in this particular way. For consumers, we offer nutrition, discovery, and agency. What do I mean by this? So basically, we've found that people are hungry or people are malnourished because they're not eating enough vegetables. And vegetables are the single most affordable way to get your dietary and nutrient needs. So by putting vegetables on your table and committing to a share of the harvest, you in fact make your life healthier, make your families healthier by making sure you get enough vegetables. Discovery. All too often we look at the supermarket and the shopping mall for things that are flown in from who knows where, the West. But hardly do we know what's actually growing in our own soils, in our own farms, and in our own country. So when we started this work, we began to see the sweetest, creamiest bananas we've ever tasted, cherry tomatoes that were growing wild, pears, and other fruits that we did not know could grow in the Philippines. And you wouldn't discover any of this walking into a supermarket. So by subscribing to a share of the harvest, you get what is local and what has been under our feet all this time. I'll discuss agency in a bit. So here's an image of what a garden looks like in Papas, Tarlac, which is a primarily rice and sugarcane growing area. Now it's got salad greens, it's got kangkong, it's got chives. This is what I mean by aggregation. So a lot of our farmers are close to 60, thereabouts, and I'm sure many of them are struggling to work with to be on Facebook, although they're succeeding now. But coming together and working as a group is something that a lot of smallholders can benefit from. So they're not just selling to each other, they're selling to neighborhoods, to us from far away. As mentioned a while ago, these are some of the items that you don't necessarily find in your regular value chain. So we've got saging bulkan, tamarillo, yakon, and local lemons. We also organize community kitchens whereby you get to know your vegetables in a new way, because we're so used to kind of highly processed food or items that need MSG, or we don't necessarily know how to work with fresh, naturally tasty food. And community kitchens are a way that we can try it out together, try new recipes, try what vegetables really taste like. All of this demand for vegetables basically enable farming families to eat better themselves. Aside from encouraging them to grow food for their own families, supporting their livelihood allows them then the food security of buying whatever else that they need. So moving more vegetables within the Philippines by increasing demand, paying a fair price, just eating more vegetables is the single most affordable way that we can feed everyone. Agency. So one at the heart of community shared agriculture is really bridging people. And through our community, we've been able to respond to the food supply issues in Metro Manila. Just in the last 3-4 months, the hunger rate has practically doubled from 10 to 20%. 1 in 5 people are hungry in Metro Manila, and we really felt it. But being connected to our farmers, being connected to our friends, and being connected to our consumers, all who wanted to contribute somehow, have been able to allow us to bring together this program whereby We buy vegetables from our farmers, a whole truckload, and we divide that with consumers, with community kitchens in urban poor areas. So it's like a one-for-one situation where you get to eat, our urban poor get to eat, and the farmers also get to eat. And this is the kind of agency that I feel is not possible in the industrial, highly industrial food chains. If there's no human contact, there's no discussion, and there's no agency. So that's good food community. Let's change the world with food.
Okay, so thank you so much, Charlene, for sharing to us this morning the importance of community shared agriculture. Thank you also for highlighting that our partnerships with farmers and consumers should not be transactional, but instead be interactional. I definitely agree that the heart of what we do is really a relationship. Thanks for emphasizing to us also the value of the people behind the food that we eat and the community who work hard in producing the delicious meals that we are blessed to eat in a day. So once again, thank you so much, Charlene Tan. Maraming salamat sa inyong oras ngayong umaga. All right, so now we now move to the question and answer portion. So the first question that we have here is from Alexander Morados. Okay, so the question is addressed to all the panelists. The question is, considering the new normal, are there differences between youth from the urban areas and from the rural areas in terms of economic opportunities and degree of involvement in community development? Okay, so let me first call Sonny. Can you share to us your...
Thanks, Nathan. So I think in terms of the difference between the urban and rural youth, in terms of economic opportunities in agriculture, right now in the Philippines, we're seeing urban youth starting local food businesses, starting urban gardening to augment their livelihood because many of the young professionals have lost their jobs. So they have found their way in terms of developing new businesses related to food. For rural youth, I think it's more on farm employment, but this is very production centric, and I think I'm also seeing some challenges in terms of consumer demand and market availability, and this pandemic actually has brought some limitations in terms of movements of people, in terms of logistics of bringing products from rural to urban areas. But I think we're also seeing some initiatives bridging this urban and rural divide in terms of connecting some farmers from the rural areas to be able to supply some food products to urban areas. And the last question was about the community development. There may be limitations on youth initiatives or youth movements because of the lockdown and brought by the pandemic. And again, there's a limited mobility of people. But I think both urban and rural youth, they can very well use online platforms to be able to forward their agenda, to be able to carry on with their advocacies. We're seeing people from urban and rural areas on social media promoting their businesses related to agriculture. So I think in terms of community development, young people are being more innovative in terms of using or maximizing ICTs or online platforms to still contribute to their respective communities, but more so on local food and nutrition security.
All right, so thank you so much, Sonny. Now let me call Mr. Carlos to give his insights.
So yes, like there have been very different situations like for young people in rural areas and the ones who in the cities or urban areas. So what the testimonies that I have heard from farmers are most of times like the access to education, like it's very hard, or the quality of it, like in rural areas, they wish children like to have better opportunities than them. And literally, I have heard something like, I don't want my daughter to break her back like in the sun, like I have done it. But I think the good news about what's happening is that digital transformation have been advancing, like I don't know, like in 6 months, the program that was for 10 years or something like that. So that's what the studies show. So the good news is that these technology companies that are focused on agriculture, that are, for example, are few right now, they're prospering and they're like getting alliances. For example, or in the case of Cultivando Futuro, we are looking for alliances like to have a broader communication with farmers. So we are here. We have been working on this for 7 years ago, but we are like right now it's a moment like to deploy like what we have done and to look for the whole capacity to go there, to be there in the moment that farmers need us. The challenge is to do it like massively. There are like so many farmers that are actually isolated, that they don't know what we have done, and I have calls with them because they don't have also internet access, but we can call them, and we are looking for a provider to automatize these calls with AI. So the solutions are there, but we must have like to move very quickly, and I think the right way to do it is through alliances.
All right, thank you so much, Carlos, for your very insightful answer. Let me now call Mr. Kofi.
Yes, thanks for the question. And I think it's a very important question because youth are not a homogeneous group of people. We all have our different concerns depending on where we are located and what we are involved in. And so asking a question about whether rural youth and urban youth are the same, then my answer actually is that no. From my perspective, I feel the urban youth are more disadvantaged considering access to education too. Because when it comes to capacity building and then education, agricultural education, as the style of education has shifted from the traditional to a more online approach, you would realize that for urban areas that are behind in development as compared to for rural areas that are behind in development as compared to the urban areas would rather be at a disadvantage as they won't have access to any form of education. Now there will be a concern to access to the internet where all forms of education have moved to. And that, if this continues for a while, then it's also going to hamper the ability of the rural youth to actually enter into new forms of employment. They'll just remain at the same place where they are. And that's the portion that I'd want to highlight as an answer to this question. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kofi. Now let us hear from Miss Charlene.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with the speakers ahead. I'm not sure how much more insight I can offer, except that, yeah, it's not as the opportunities in terms of economic activity it doesn't feel all that optimistic for a lot of people. So while it's true that now we're looking, I mean, it's the youth that can get digital, we shouldn't neglect the fact that, those who have access to the digital platform are also very limited. And so it's sort of that really does exacerbate gaps between the rich and the poor. I think in terms of economic activity, at least our youth on the farms can help out in terms of food security. They can help out on the farms and things like that. Whereas in the urban areas where there's no mobility, there's no access. It's much harder, even though they could get on Facebook hypothetically. In terms of community development, I guess the opportunity would be that everyone is like looking local now. Everyone is looking at what they do have, what they can contribute to their community, and perhaps this is where the hope lies. And we hope that the youth will, because they can communicate with each other and see what other people have done across countries like this and platforms like this, that perhaps they'll be inspired to work together.
All right, thank you so much, Charlene, and to all our speakers. Now let us proceed to the second question. All right, so for the second question, this question is addressed to specifically to Kofi and to Carlos. The question is, among the strategies that you've implemented for the youth to be more actively engaged in agriculture, which one worked best for you, and which do you think, do you believe that it can be replicated also in the Southeast Asia? So let me first call Kofi to answer the question.
One thing that we have done among our initiatives is to place the youth themselves in a position to express their needs. So aside putting them on the round table with decision makers, we have also facilitated a process of experience capitalization, where we could actually document the experiences of the youth, so we can promote good practices and also take notice of where gaps are in youth engagement initiatives. And so this question actually gives me an opportunity to explain the process which we went through in the Continental Youth Workshop that I mentioned, which led to the publication of the YETA report, the Youth Engagement and Technology Adoption in Africa report, that report. The first step we took to getting the participants was to organize a writing competition, an essay competition, where they had to write about the initiatives that they had been involved in. And so they wrote to us, made us know what initiatives that they had been involved in, and based on the description, it wasn't a competition as to how well they write or how good their grammar is, but as to how engaging this initiative was. And so we gathered these participants, brought them together so we could find out the exact things that went on in these initiatives, what the hows and the whys, what the strategy actually was. So with this, we were able to identify all the positives in these initiatives, and we plan on publishing that one too. After that publication may come out soon, and we may have a look at what it is. We definitely will share it with the entire community of YPAD and SEARCA. So I believe that this can be replicated in Asia, and this helps actually, because it answers the question of what the youth actually want.
All right, thank you so much, Kofi. Now let us hear from Carlos.
Perfect. Yes, so I think a good strategy is to reach organizations that are providing education in rural areas. For example, there are plenty of them here in Colombia. And yeah, a good strategy is always to talk about more than provide information or something like that. It's more about motivation and inspiration through peers, and to provide the right channels so young people can communicate between each other and can be very clear about, so I have done this with my crops, or this is my project of an association here in my local area, and they can exchange information that is very valuable. Like it's more valuable than just providing information like very technical. It's more about like detect the right channels, like to know like where are these youth communities getting like involved. Like is it Facebook? Is it WhatsApp? What are the right channels that they're using right now, and provide like opportunities for them. For example, the Thought for Food program, TFF challenge, has been like very important, like for me as an ambassador, to motivate also these young communities, like telling them, so okay, so we presented this project, and for Colombians, like to have an important part in a global competition, like you see, like that's so far away, and it's very important, like to talk about. So I have done this. I'm sure you can do this, and so yes, it's very important, like to have the right channels of communication, and so they can learn, like we can learn about like being peers about it, and it's very important, like to have this vision about the future and how to communicate it to young people so they can be like engaged in these opportunities, and we also like can exchange knowledge and learn from each other. I think that's very very important, like to create communities and to speed up with organizations providing education or detect the right channel.
All right, thank you so much, Carlos. Moving on to our next question. Okay, so for the next question, this is addressed to all our panelists once again. So the question is, what does youth engagement actually entail? If the government is to implement a program to respond to youth disengagement, can you share your opinion what the major components should be and how to effectively incentivize so that we can ensure their participation? So for this question, I would like first to call Miss Charlene Tan.
Well, for us, our experience has been working with smallholder farmers who are a little bit older. And we found that over the last 10 years that the younger generation, their kids or the younger farmers in the area have joined in when they see hope, when they see a future to our partnership, to our enterprise. So similarly, I think it's as simple as like really supporting agriculture as a livelihood. When they see that the business works, then they'll want to be part of the business. Then they'll want to, so everything from agricultural extension to access to microfinance, to everything that like family businesses need, family farms need to improve, will invite the youth to a future. So I think it's both that kind of support, also as Carlos was mentioning, like the vision, the idea of like dignity and pride, and being able to have those channels to really build up what farming means and how that is a respectable profession. I think there's a need for that, but there needs to be a lot of groundwork and like real effective agricultural support. So extension, provision of microfinance, titles, land access, all of these kind of things that just to make it, worthwhile to be in business in agriculture.
All right, thank you so much, Charlene. Now let me call Sonny to answer the question.
Thanks, Nathan. I think youth disengagement and youth engagement in general is looking beyond merely having young people as beneficiaries of our youth initiatives, but more so about partnering with them. So youth engagement is actually hearing about their issues because the young people are at the time, they are at the phase when they are transitioning from childhood to adulthood. So they have certain issues, and we have to factor in terms of designing our programs in youth engagement. And for Charlene mentioned about packaging agriculture, supporting them, showing to them that this agribusiness actually works. So I agree with that. And also, if we are promoting agriculture to young people, it's also important to consider the affective dimension of sons and daughters of farmers. So since we're trying to somehow influence their perceptions in agriculture or pursuing a career in agriculture or pursuing their farming business, it's critical to tap into their affective dimension because in the past year we've done some studies in terms of looking at case studies of farmer sons and daughters, wherein we were able to find out that young people are actually concerned about the livelihood of their parents, and that's their affective dimension. So they want to support their parents, they want to carry on with their business as long as there are really support and they can see a career on that aspect and they can see that it's lucrative.
All right. Thank you so much, Sonny. Now let me call Carlos to answer the question.
Perfect. Well, as an entrepreneur and thinking about like what could be the idea about an accelerator, for example, if the government is looking for to support projects from young people, like how could you translate this concept of a startup accelerator and translate it to rural projects, right? So you can, as an organization, create a program where you can have different options, for example, for dairy, for growing vegetables, fruits, like different sectors of agriculture, and you can have like these business models that young people can use for their projects and can implement, and they could also like learn to make better decisions, right? So they can know like also in practice. And I think something that is very important for keeping youth in rural areas and with taking part of rural prosperity is about not just about labor, but more about management and vision. So if we can engage our young people with these concepts, I think it will be very powerful and they can learn to manage the farms of their parents. So I think that the concept of an accelerator applied to rural contexts, it will be very interesting and very exciting to see.
Okay, gracias. Thank you so much, Carlos. And last, let me call Kofi to answer the question.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan. It's very easy for me to, at this moment, say agriculture should be made sexy. You know, that's what we usually hear when it comes to youth engagement. But truth is, with agriculture being sexy, if it is not profitable, then the youth will definitely be disengaged because it's all about money. You know, if it's sexy and it's not profitable, then we have a problem. But well, I suppose that it being sexy also has to be with it has to do with the money that it brings. All right. So we have to improve the face or the image of agriculture. First of all, we have to take note of the very indigenous technologies that have helped over the years. This is beyond the lab and beyond what scientists have discovered. The farmers themselves have their own technologies which have worked for them over the years. We could investigate these ones and then improve on them. And I think standing with the youth will also help because they need, or let me say, we youth in agriculture, we need to be improved. You know, some need skills, some need all forms of capacity building opportunities, which may not be available to them. So they may be interested, all right, but they still may be disengaged in agriculture because there are no opportunities for them to attach themselves. So when their capacity is built, then they are able to leverage on this and then get really involved in the sector. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Kofi, and to all our panelists. Now, for our next question, this question is directed to Sonny and Charlene. All right, so here in the Philippines, what if Filipino youth in rural areas are not interested in educating themselves anymore? Like they are contented with what they have for today and not thinking for their future. What should we do? So let me first call Charlene to answer this question.
That's a very difficult question. I don't think that values are taught, they're caught. So no amount of intervention can really make someone learn something that they're not interested in. But I suppose that the best way then would just really, as Carla said, would be to have role models and Kofi as well, like being able to create a network, I suppose, and have exposure of the kind of role models you want. You can just hope that they'll wake up one day and want to learn for themselves, right? But it does have to be attractive. I don't want to say sexy, but the reason why people are not motivated or children are not motivated is that the future doesn't offer much promise, and you have to really show them more than what there is, than what they can look around with them. So the more that figure out where they're looking, where their attention is, and put your narrative there, offer them a vision there, I guess is the best that we can do. And if you have the right role models, if you have the right vision, and hopefully they'll catch the interest.
All right, thank you so much, Charlene, for answering the question. Now let me call my colleague, Sonny.
Well, I agree with Charlene. That's a very difficult question. I think it's like what Charlene has mentioned. It's about giving them a vision of the future. So perhaps if he or she or the child is contented about his or her rural life, well, there's nothing wrong about living in a rural area. I think it's more on tapping into their creativity, tapping into or teaching them to dream again for the future. And probably we can in helping that child to dream again, perhaps we can tell about stories that resonate with him or her, stories about their family, stories about his or her community. So I think it's more on not really trying to hard sell or put some values or inject something to that particular child, but more on actually talking to him or her, just to ask questions, let him or her tell stories why he or she is not wanting to, not is already contented or not wanting to dream for the future again. So I think it's more on really sitting beside the child and try to get to know perhaps he or she has an issue and try to investigate. And from there, we can develop some interventions on how to address that kind of perception that he or she is already contented and where she is.
All right, thank you so much for your very insightful answers. Now, I think this will be the last question. Okay, so for the last question, this question is addressed again to all of the panelists. So, what do you think is the best thing to do so our youth will be engaged in agricultural development, especially in a time of COVID-19 pandemic? So, with that concluding question, may I first call Kofi to answer?
Yes, so the first thing I would mention is policies to support the youth in these times, because it's a general environment for everybody at this very moment. And as much as rural youth are being hit, urban youth are also being hit, and it's all across. So I think government interventions will help, and also keeping the youth together. Keeping the youth together also helps, because it helps in exchange of ideas and helps them chart a way forward, helps us chart a way forward. And yeah, there was a third one I was about to mention, it escaped me, but I'll come in when as and when it drops in my mind again. So we can move to the next panelist. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kofi. Let me now call Carlos.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like it's very important. Like I totally agree with Coffee. Like it's very important like to create these communities and that these communities remain together and can learn from each other. So yeah, we have seen like this pandemic have a very important challenge in challenges in terms of poverty. And for example, here in Colombia, we're getting backwards where we were 10 or 15 years ago in terms of poverty. So it's very important like to young people to share their strategies, also to look for the support of organizations and see what we can do for them, right? And we can provide also visibility of the problems we they are experiencing. So in my presentation, we already knew about like the main challenges that farmers have to face. So yeah, I think the main thing about this is try to use communication to really show what's happening and to really prevent things that are going to be going further in terms of economic crisis, right? So yeah, I think it's very important like to create these communities and to empower the voices of these young people in rural areas and how we as leaders can provide solutions. And if we cannot, we have to look for the organizations that can help us to provide solutions because yes, these are challenging times, and challenging times requires a lot of innovation.
All right. Muchas gracias, Mr. Carlos. Let me now call once again Charlene.
So I think for us, it's an unprecedented time, but it also offers us, I feel like everyone is in a shakeup right now. And the opportunity is people are going back to what's really important. People are rethinking about, what is this now that we're stuck at home and we don't have a lot of distractions in some way, we begin to realize like, okay, what is important? Food, relationships, people, and our community. So the best thing that we can do is to take advantage of this clarity and say, this is the world that we can shape. This is the world that we can shape for the future. This should be our better normal. So if we can model that vision for other people, if we can build alliances with the people who want to build this with us, we can really change the world with food. We can really do something new. And I think this is where the youth have as much partnership because they can imagine what is now possible. So platforms such as these connecting and staying true to the relationships that we want to build is, I think, the best thing that we can do right now.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Now let me call once again my colleague, Sonny.
Thanks, Nathan. I agree with the rest of the speakers, and communication is very important if we are to take advantage of this pandemic or that we're seeing now, that food is really important, especially food security at the household and local level. So this is a very good opportunity to re-emphasize to younger generations the basics of life, starting with food. And mobilization is also important because this pandemic has also brought a lot of opportunities for young people to become unstoppable. So there may be some limitations in terms of movement and mobility, but we're also seeing young people supporting each other. So I guess the best allies of young people are young people who are supporting their local businesses, who are supporting their advocacies. And I think it's also important to better engage young people in agriculture is to show the support of institutions. So we tap into the resources of various institutions like SEARCA, of course, and government institutions in terms of supporting ideas of young people, innovative ideas of young people, and how to better respond and recover to the food security challenges of the pandemic.
All right, thank you so much, Sonny, and to all our speakers. Your answers were very helpful. All right, so I know that we still have a lot of questions, okay, lined up, but I'm also mindful of the time that we have for this webinar. So rest assured that we will be sending your comments and questions to our speakers, and they will address them as soon as possible. But before we close this webinar, may I request all our speakers for some closing or takeaway message? All right, so starting off with Ms. Charlene.
So hi, thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I feel like I learned a lot, and for myself, like my horizons were broadened. It's great to hear stories all over the world about this. So thank you for inviting me, and I hope we can connect even offline and continue the work together. So thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Charlene Tan. Now let me call Kofi to give his closing message.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Nathan. I was here taking some notes, and I have a lot of interesting statements from my colleague panelists. I'm not so sure which one to pick. I'm trying not to make the closing statement something that I've already said or something I've already held on to. So I think I'll pick from Charlene, since she's the superwoman on our panelist team right now. Charlene mentioned that now that COVID has hit the entire world, everybody is going back to what is really important, and this is food and community. And that is what we all are about on this seminar, on this webinar, actually. We are about food, we're about community, we're about mobilizing people, we're about making things happen and changing lives, creating sustainable lives for youth in particular. And so I'd like to encourage everybody on this day, which is Youth Day, let us stick to what we hold as more important, that is food, community, and I wish everybody a happy Youth Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kofi. Now let me call Carlos.
Great. So yes, I'm very, very excited about learning a lot from all of you. I'm very honored to be here and to share my experience from this part of the world and to learn a lot of you. I hope to visit your country very soon, as soon as this situation changes. And I'm also thinking about like what we can do in agriculture and what's the real potential of agriculture and food systems, right? As I'm seeing like there in your logo, there's like this tree and the sustainable development goals there. So it's very important, like agriculture have a lot of potential in terms of social impact, in terms of sustainability, in terms of economic access to rural communities, in terms of poverty, in terms of food production. So it's like it's the whole package. So it's very important, like when someone like it's creating a purpose of life, I think it provides like a most meaningful experience than, I don't know, look for I don't know, to work at a bank, or I don't know, I'm talking about different sectors. So agriculture have a lot of potential, a lot of places to innovate. So yeah, I'm seeing this like in this webinar also, and it's really important like for us like to create these projects and to create this. I think that our generation like is very oriented in the impact that we are doing for the world. So I'm very happy to see the work that it's being done like for all the panelists. And yeah, I will be happy also to connect offline. And if you have like any ideas that I can provide some insights, or that I can provide the platform or the TFF community, I will be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Now, let me call our final speaker, Sonny, to give his closing message.
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks as well to the rest of the speakers for telling us your story about how you're making impact in your respective countries and communities. And SEARCA is also happy to be able to provide this platform to young people like you, like us, to be able to express our best practices and also to have a conversation like what we did during the Q&A to really steer discussions on how we can better engage young people in agriculture. And SEARCA hopes that through our youth program, we would be able to provide more platforms like this, not just online, but more so if the situation permits to really do things on the ground. And what the speakers have mentioned, we get inspiration from them on how to, better engage young people and better understand them and really offer some practical solutions that not just young people, but also our farmers, our teachers, our stakeholders to be able to follow through. So this has provided us a platform to have a two-way discussion. The ones young learning from young people and the young ones learning from the ones young. So we're excited to be able to put forward this agenda further to have some impact in the communities in terms of policies and other interventions. So the key takeaway for this is all about being heard. And I think being heard in such platforms like this is empowering in it itself. So happy International Youth Day to everyone, and this is just the start of the SEARCA's Youth Program, and we hope that every day is Youth Day. So every day we have this youthful energy to really bring about changes in our respective communities. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to all our speakers. Once again, with SEARCA, led by our director, Dr. Glenn Gregorio, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Mr. Sonny Pasiona, Mr. Kofi Acquaye, Mr. Carlos Neira, and Miss Charlene Tan for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for your presentations, which enlightened us on the different ways and means on how to address gender and youth in agricultural and rural development, as well as how to empower future leaders in Southeast Asia. So to synthesize everything this morning, we learned that several organizations, communities, and even partners are more than willing to help our farmers and agricultural families, especially women and the youth. SEARCA launches its Y4 Agri program today in its commitment to the youth of tomorrow. YPARD has Youth Innovators Awards, trainings, and mentorship programs. Cultivando Futuro, on the other hand, has their own digital platform to balance data collection costs and install capacity. And lastly, Good Food Community has implemented Ligap Maralita among the many initiatives of their organization to buy vegetables from farmers and divide them to consumers with community kitchens in urban poor areas. With that, we can really say that it's now high time that we empower our agricultural communities, that we unite ourselves, especially to tap the younger generation. It is by our collective efforts, when we work hand in hand and together, we can make a huge difference, especially in this time of the COVID-19 global health emergency. Once again, thank you to all our speakers who championed agricultural and rural development in their own simple ways. Truly, you are already all empowered individuals. Now, let us in turn empower our future generation by extending our arms in cultivating the next league of young farmers and farming individuals across the region. So that ends our webinar this morning. And I want to tell you that we are going to inform you all that there was also some problems in terms of our live streaming in our Facebook. The reason why it is a bit lagging. But you can watch the video of the webinar on our YouTube channel. We'll be announcing this in our Facebook page once the video of the 14th webinar has been posted. So stay tuned. All right, so before we close, please let us know what you think about this webinar by clicking, okay, the link to a quick feedback form, which will be posted in the SEARCA Facebook event page. So it is already flashed on your screen. You may type it in your web browsers, all right? If you are registered via Zoom, you will be redirected to the feedback form before you leave the webinar room. Your feedback form is very important to us to help us improve the webinar. For those who wish to receive an e-certificate for participating in today's webinar, the feedback form shall serve as a requirement for the e-certificate. So please note that we will only accommodate requests for the e-certificate within 24 hours after the end of this webinar session. Again, please take note that we will only accommodate requests for the e-certificate within 24 hours after the end of this webinar session. We would also like to inform everyone that we issue hundreds of e-certificates after each webinar. So please make sure to type your correct name and email addresses. Kindly wait for your e-certificate to be issued within 10 working days. Thank you so much for your understanding and for your patience. Now, please join us again for our next online conversation next week, which is on August 19 at 10 a.m. for our Solve webinar, which will focus on Solve Youth Disengagement in Agriculture, Southeast Asian Youth Champions in Action, as the last installment of our August webinar series on gender and youth in agricultural and rural development. So once again, let us help one another get through this COVID-19 pandemic. We hope that as we go along, we will be able to create a community of better, bigger, and smarter farmers and farming families. This is Nathan P. Felix for SEARCA. Stay healthy and stay safe. Have a youthful day to all. Thank you.